So, welcome to our class today. We will be talking about uh, stage and foundation of Python. Today we'll be looking at Python and we'll be discussing how Python is important and why Python as a language. And Python is a very simple language. You've been using Python your whole life, you didn't understand it. Uh, for example, I'll be using real life example to explain Python. And Python is a very easy language, it's a wide language, and Python is used in backend and in backend technology. Python also is used in 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 backend technology. It also is used in AI and data science. It also used in cybersecurity. So a brief introduction of a roadmap which you can use to understand Python. So the first week you can do the syntax, learn the basics Python syntax, the logics, the data types, and the operation if else. Week 2 you can learn the loops, iteration and the modular design. Week 3 you can learn files and handling, REST integration. And week 4 you can do a project and then do the CLI. So that's just a simple way for you to learn Python. So before we go there, so what we are going to look at next is an IDE. So for example, if you want to use Python, you need to use an IDE. And the IDE that I recommend you to use actually is VS Code. VS Code is a good IDE if you want to learn Python. Now, uh, so if you want to install Python in your VS Code, you type the following in the terminal, and Python will run. We're going to take a look at the syntax uh, and data primitives. Dynamic typing, Python manages memory automatically, allowing variables to change types as needed without explicit declarations. Strings, text wrapped in quotes, used for user interaction and file path manipulation. Numerics, the integer and the float. And then Boolean, which are true and false logics. Now condition logic and a flow control. So basically Python has its own logic. It uses white spaces to define scope, forcing clean and readable code. The following is a logic which Python uses, and it's an if else, and it is used to determine the program response and the dynamic inputs of the program. If we're talking about the input and output, we use the input to show out input and then the print to show output in Python. So what we're going to look at is the modular logic via function, encapsulation, parameters, and the return values. Wrapping a logic in a name block prevents repetition and simplifies debugging. That's what we call encapsulation. And parameters function accept variables as inputs, making the underlying logic dynamic and universally acceptable. And then return values. Modular code returns processed data to the main execution thread for further manipulation. Now, so what after we have seen this, we've realized that Python also has a resilient design in error handling. Now, error handling in simple terms is the backup plan that you have for your code. For example, if you go to a shop, you ask for to buy something and you don't find it in the shop, the backup plan is now used is like error handling. So the try is the first thing you do. The except now is the backup plan. Very simple. Now we have system file manipulation. In Python, one thing you need to learn is file manipulation and file handling. Writing a file, reading a file, and exception handling. Now, interfacing with an operating system allows Python to manipulate, to automate manual tasks like sorting, renaming, and batch processing. The example is an example of a code, and it's used to remove files. The capability is the bridge between simple coding and high-level system automation. So we're going to go into a project deep dive. If you create a file called filemanagement.py, the component, the OS path joins directly names across Windows or Linux. The batch renaming interactively updates file metadata based on index, and the extension parsing string split dynamically extracts and preserves file formats. Boundary checks if the OS path exists ensures that the target file folder context before execution. Now, we're going to look at the beginner pitfalls and mitigation. One of the beginner pitfalls is the syntax error that normally occurs, and then logical loops and debugging and indentation issues. Now, VS Code fixed this, and Autoliner later fixed this and syntax. I always utilize VS Code because in real-time feedback loops to minimize real-time logic failures. That's the good thing about using VS Code. Now, if we're done with that, we are going to go to the stage 2, and we'll be explaining uh, backend architecture and API construction and the structural data analysis of Python. That's just a simple introduction of Python. Uh, Before I conclude, what you need to learn as the basics, you need to learn object-oriented programming in Python, dictionaries, and lists and functions where we define a function, the loops, the while loop, the for loop, if statements, the operations or arithmetic operators in Python, the input and output, the data types in Python, and the Python syntax of declaring variables. And just simple basic things that you need to know in Python, and also file handling, writing a file, reading a file, exception handling, before we go to the back end of this now. So stage 1, this is a question, stage 1, about if you finish the foundation, go to github.com and find Python mastery or Python exception handling. So these are the sources of where I found this, and by this is just a simple introduction of Python. So have a good one.